Hi Year 4, hope you're all okay and that you're having a lovely week so far. I'm not going to spend any time talking today, I'm just going to get on with the reading. So we're on page 178 if you've got a book at home, and we're at the bottom of the page. Do you know if your mother knows my dad? His name is Bartholomew Cuttle. He works at the Natural History Museum. Novak shrugged. She does know people at the museum, but I don't know who they are. I've never heard that name before, and I'd remember it because it sounds like mine. She looked at him curiously. Is Cuttle your surname too? Darkus nodded. Cutter, Cuttle. He sounded the names out. Your name sounds sharper. Cutter's not Mater's real name. Did you know that? Darkus shook his head. What's her real name? Lucy Johnstone. Isn't that a nice, friendly-sounding name? She changed her name to Lucretia Cutter before I was born, when she set up her business. Cutter is what they call a tailor who invents patterns for clothes. It's good for a fashion designer, but I think Lucy Johnstone is much prettier. Well, whether your mother knows my dad or not, I still need to find out why she wants those beetles and what she plans to do with them. Is Matey your enemy? Novak asked, frowning. Darkus felt his cheeks grow hot as he tried to answer. I don't know. Maybe if you explain to her why she shouldn't kill the beetles. Novak shook her head. Nothing stops her from getting what she wants. Look at how amazing Baxter is. If she knew he were here, she'd make him into a trophy, just like poor Ornithophagus taurus. A chill travelled down Darkus's spine as he realised the danger he was putting Baxter in, bringing him into this house. I should go. He pulled his backpack on. Look, I understand why you can't help us, but I'll be your friend for life if you can help me and Baxter get out of here without being seen. I've never had a friend. Novak sounded the word out like it was new to her. You must have had school friends. I don't go to school, she shook her head. I have a tutor, Miss Boyle. Well, I'm your friend now, and Baxter is your friend too, Darkus said, and if you help me get out of here, we'll have a secret as well, which makes us even better friends. A secret? Oh yes, I like that. Novak leapt to her feet. Friends is better than lovers. Much. If Mater knew we were friends, she would forbid it. Novak's eyes were shining. Why? She says I don't need friends because everyone will want to be my friend when I'm famous. That's not friendship. Do you think being famous is silly? A person ought to be famous for doing something really good or really difficult, like climbing Mount Everest or landing on Mars, replied Darkus. If you were a famous explorer, I'd think you were amazing. How about a spy? Novak asked, looking mischievous. A spy? You want to find out what Mater and your neighbours are planning? Darkus nodded. Well, only a world-famous spy can help you then. She shot him a look loaded with mystery, walked to the bookshelf and pulled on a large red book. The section of shelves that made up that part of the wall slid backwards. You have secret passages in your house? Darkus's jaw dropped. They aren't secret if you know they're there, Novak said, stepping into the gap between the shelves. The passages are for the servants, Novak explained as the library shelves silently returned to their original position. Towering Heights has 8 floors, all with hidden doors and passages. My room's on the 5th floor, and it has a passage that leads out from the back of my wardrobe. Darkus felt a thrill of excitement as he followed Novak down the narrow corridor. The servants' passages were grey and functional, lit by floor lights and a stark contrast to the front of the house. They came to a brass gate with a handle. It was an old-fashioned lift, the kind Darkus had seen in movies. Get in. He obeyed, and Novak leant across him, pulling the gate closed. The lift whirred and lurched downwards. Where are we going? Darkus asked. The White Room. It's Mater's office, and where she meets people. That's where your friends will be. They're not my friends, Darkus said. They're my enemies. You're so lucky to have real enemies, Novak sighed. I have to make mine up. They mustn't see me. Don't worry. Novak fluttered her eyelashes. No one will see us. Good, Darkus said, feeling uncomfortable. A delicate bell chimed, announcing they were on the first floor. He stepped out of the lift and set off after Novak, who was running silently down the corridor on the tips of her toes. She turned left and right, then suddenly stopped and pushed her fingers against the wall, making a hidden handle pop out. Putting her fingers to her lips, she whispered, "We must be very quiet. If Mater hears us, we'll be in trouble." Darkus nodded, and they entered a room the size of a bathroom, containing nothing but a bench covered with a sheepskin throw. Novak motioned for Darkus to sit. Opposite the bench was a window into the room next door. "It's a two-way mirror," Novak whispered, sitting down beside him. "We can see them, but they can't see us. Mater uses it to watch models or clients when they're having dress fittings. Look," she pointed up at the speakers in the corners of the room. "We can hear them too." Lucretia Cutter, instantly recognisable by her lab coat and walking sticks, was standing in front of the mirror with her back to them. Darkus swallowed down the confusion of fear and anger that bubbled up inside him when he looked at her. He studied the room beyond the mirror, memorising every detail to tell Virginia and Bertolt. There wasn't much furniture, and everything was either white or transparent. To the right was a laboratory bench, like the ones at school, only much cooler. The worktop was made of the same shiny white stone as the floor, a silver gas tap rising up like a swan's neck, and beside it a powerful-looking microscope. Below the bench was a row of fridges with see-through doors. Darkus could see stacks of Petri dishes and racks of test tubes inside them. A clear perspex shelf stretched across the opposite wall, and Darkus registered the 3 white sculptures sitting on it: a human figure, a beetle, and the DNA double helix. Lucretia Cutter was standing behind a sleek glass desk, which was bare except for a white telephone and a framed photograph. Facing her, in their yellow and purple suits, were Pickering and Humphrey, looking ridiculously out of place in the spotless room. Darkus couldn't help but smile at the sight of them. Pickering was pointing at Humphrey. His revolting habits led to infestation. "He is disgusting. I, on the other hand, wash 3 or 4 times a day." "Shut up or I'll mash you." Humphrey lifted his massive fist above Pickering's head. "Silence." Lucretia Cutter's voice cut through the cousins' bickering. "You will give over your property to me for 48 hours to remove every last beetle." Pickering and Humphrey nodded like eager puppies. "Whatever you desire," Humphrey spluttered, spraying spittle across her glass desk. "Ugh," Pickering squealed. "I'll be paying you handsomely for the beetles and the inconvenience, so I expect you to do exactly as I ask." "Inconvenience?" Pickering clasped his hands together. "No inconvenience at all. It will be a pleasure." "You will move out of the building for the duration of the operation," she continued. "What?" the cousins cried in unison. "Where will we go?" Humphrey asked. "But we can help you," said Pickering. "I won't be doing it myself, Mr. Risk. I will be sending my men, Dankish and Craven, to deal with your mound of beetles. You did say it was a mound." The cousins nodded. "A 6-figure sum will be transferred to your bank account on the day you leave, and the funds will clear once the beetles have been removed from your premises and counted. Then you will be free to return. During the interim, I will then make my private suite at the Empress Hotel available for you to stay in. You will not be permitted to talk about this arrangement with anyone. Do you understand? If you do, you forfeit the fee." Pickering and Humphrey nodded again. Lucretia Cutter walked around the desk and held out her perfectly manicured hand, her expression unreadable behind the enormous sunglasses. "Do we have a deal?" Humphrey leapt up. "It's a deal," he said, bending down and kissing the back of her hand. Lucretia Cutter's gold lips curled with disgust. Wait!" Pickering got to his feet. "What about the council? They know about the infestation. They want us to clear the yard. They said—" "The council will not bother you again, Mr. Risk. I'll make sure of that." Lucretia Cutter pulled her hand away from Humphrey. "How do you think I found out about your beetles in the first place?" She laughed, a low guttural sound. "I have people everywhere." "Right. Yes, I see, said Pickering, clearly not seeing anything at all. She pressed a button on the white telephone in front of her. Gerard? The butler entered with a tray containing 2 documents and 2 gold pens. Sign and date the last page. Lucretia Cutter held out her hand so that Gerard could clean... Gerard. Sorry, I said it wrong before. Could clean it with a steaming hot towel he pulled from a cylinder in his pocket. Darcus crept closer to the mirror. He felt vulnerable so close to the glass and had to remind himself that no one in the room could see him. But he now had a clear view of the framed photograph on her desk. The picture was of 9 smiling people in white coats sitting in 2 rows. Printed in a white project box at the bottom of the picture were the words Faber Project. What's the matter? Novak whispered, alarmed. Are you ill? You look like you're going to be sick. That picture, Darcus pointed. What about it? Novak came to stand next to Darcus. Oh, that's from when she was at university. You can hardly recognise her. She looks so different now. Look, her hair is all messy and scraped back. She's wearing glasses and she's smiling. She sighed. She looks nice, doesn't she? Darcus's heart was thumping against his ribs. What's so interesting about it? That, Darcus cleared his throat, finding he couldn't get the words out, is my dad. Novak leant forward. Which one? The one with the beard next to your mum. Novak stared at Darcus. He doesn't look like you at all. Novak, Darcus looked her in the eye. Suddenly finding his voice, he blurted out loudly, Someone's kidnapped my dad, and I don't know why. Kidnapped? Novak looked frightened. A shadow fell across the mirror, and they both looked up. Lucretia Cutter was admiring her reflection in the glass. As she turned her head from left to right, it was as if she looked right through the mirror into the room. Darcus froze. If there hadn't been glass between them, Lucretia Cutter would have felt his breath on her cheek. She can't see us, Novak whispered, as though to reassure herself as much as Darcus. She can't hear us. In the room, Humphrey had signed the contract and was holding the paper out to Gerard. Pickering made a show of reading every word of his, then arranged his face in a thoughtful expression. Perhaps we could discuss this over dinner? There's nothing to discuss. Lucretia Cutter turned away from the mirror. You either want to sell me the Beatles or you don't. Darcus let out a huge sigh, suddenly aware that he'd been holding his breath. Come on, sign it, Pickers. It's £500,000, Humphrey said. That's £250,000 each. I can do the maths, Humphrey, thank you. Pickering looked at Lucretia Cutter. You must really like killing beetles to pay such a large amount of money to do something we'd normally have to pay for ourselves. Lucretia Cutter leant over her desk menacingly. I'm a collector, Mr. Risk, she hissed. A very wealthy collector. I've paid more money for a handbag than the figure I'm offering you for those beetles. It's entirely up to you whether you want the money or not. Leaning back on her sticks, she propelled herself forwards to the door. This conversation is over. She looked back at the mirror. I have something I need to take care of. Get under the bench. Novak sucked in her breath, pulling at Darcus. She knows we're here. What? I thought you said, do as I say, she's coming. Novak kicked the back of Darcus's knees and his legs folded underneath him. Quick! Finding himself on the floor, Darcus started to protest, then heard the heart-stopping click of the door handle. He rolled under the bench and squashed himself against the wall. There was a muffled crunch as Baxter's jar smashed inside his rucksack. Novak pulled the sheepskin rug down to hide him, then sprang away from the bench. Mater! Darcus saw the ends of Lucretia Cutter's walking sticks and the hem of her long black velvet skirt as she swirled into the room. What do you think you're doing? I'm going to pause there for today and we will continue next week. I wonder what's going to happen to Darcus and Novak. See you soon!